Dave, how was your weekend?
It was great. It was my wedding anniversary.
Ah, did you do anything to celebrate?
Yeah, we went for dinner at Bar Napoli. It's the restaurant we met in. Actually, that's a funny story.
Oh? Tell me about it.
Well, my friend Ross asked me if I would like to go on a date with his friend Emma. I'd never met her or even seen a photo, but she sounded nice, so I agreed to go. Ross arranged for us to meet at Bar Napoli the following week. When I got to the restaurant, I saw a woman sitting at a table by herself, so I went over, asked her if she was called Emma, and introduced myself. We had a fantastic evening. We had lots in common, and we chatted for hours. I could see that Ross was sending me loads of messages, but it was a bit annoying, so I turned my phone off and ignored him. When I left the restaurant, I called him to tell him how amazing I thought Emma was, but he was really upset when he answered the phone.
Why?
Well, he asked why I hadn't met Emma and said that she'd waited for me in the restaurant for over an hour before going home. He said that she was really angry and that he couldn't believe I'd been so rude.
What?
I was really confused. I told him I'd been at Bar Napoli, met Emma, and that we'd had a great time. Then he asked why I'd gone to Bar Napoli when I was supposed to meet her at Cafe Napoli.
Oh, Cafe Napoli, not Bar Napoli.
It all started to make sense. I'd misunderstood the name of the restaurant and gone to the wrong one. I felt awful that I'd left Emma waiting alone. She must have felt so embarrassed.
Oh no, that's terrible. But hang on, what about the other Emma? The Emma that you had dinner with and who is now your wife?
Well, it turned out that she was waiting for a date too. A friend had arranged for her to meet someone also called David. So, when I said I was Dave, she thought I was him. We had so much other stuff to talk about that we didn't actually mention our friends.
Wow, what a mix-up.
Can you recommend any good cafes here?
Yeah, there are loads of great places. What kind of food do you like?
Anything really. Interesting food.
What do you mean by that?
You know, food from different parts of the world. I like trying new things.
Oh, have you been to the new food market in town?
No. What's it like?
It's really good. I've already had lunch there 3 times this week.
Have you?
Yeah, the food is great and it's pretty cheap. I've tried some fantastic dishes.
Such as?
I had a really good Indonesian curry, some Greek street food, and some delicious arepas from a Peruvian stall. They were particularly good.
Oh, that sounds great.
I also had some cake yesterday, but I didn't think much of it.
How come?
It was slightly dry and far too sweet.
On today's show, we're talking to Nancy Fleming, author of several books about management skills. She's here to tell us all about her new book, How to Be a Great Communicator. Nancy, it's great to have you on the show. Tell us, why did you decide to focus on communication skills in this book?
We have so many different ways to communicate these days. Email, messaging apps, social media. But even with all these tools, we're often still not very good at communicating well.
And bad communication can often lead to misunderstandings, can't it?
Exactly. It's really important to think about the way that we communicate with other people, at work and out of work.
So, what are your top tips?
Well, people can start by improving their listening skills. We often think that speaking and writing are the main parts of communication, but listening is actually really important. Sometimes we're so focused on what we want to say in a conversation that we forget to listen. A good communicator waits to listen to what the other person is saying, then takes time to think about what that person has said before they respond.
Okay. What else?
Be clear and don't say too much. You should try to get your message across in as few words as possible. Talking or writing on and on about something can often make people feel bored, and they might stop paying attention. Keep your communication short and to the point.
And what about body language?
Body language is so important. We don't just communicate verbally through words, we also use our bodies and the expressions on our faces. In fact, one study says that body language counts for 55% of communication, and words only count for 7%. So it's really important to think about body language. If you start looking out the window when someone is talking, or look at your watch, they might think that you're bored or not interested in what they're saying.
You said body language counts for 55% and words 7%. What about the other 38%?
Tone of voice. How our voices sound. For example, do you sound friendly or kind or aggressive and impatient? In fact, less than 10% of communication comes from words.
Nancy, thank you. What's in a word? Well, it depends on who says it and what they mean. Many of us believe that most conflicts in relationships are the result of miscommunication, and so often this comes down to language. Sometimes just one word. Take the word invite, for instance.
A few days before my friend's birthday, she sent me a message saying that she wanted to invite me to her birthday party. It was in a private room at an expensive restaurant. I knew the place, but only from the outside. But I messaged her back and replied that I'd be there. I bought her a present, and when the day came, I went. At the end of the meal, when the bill came, it was clear all of the guests were expected to pay our part of the bill. I was really upset. She should have been clearer. It cost me a whole week's salary. It was such an expensive place.
Well, that can't have been good for your friendship. And what about other types of relationship? Maybe workplace ones. Rich has a story from his workplace.
I was in my first month on the job, and my manager said she wanted to talk to me and could I come to her office. I felt really nervous. She had a very serious style, kind of scary. I walked into her office and sat down. She was actually really nice. She wanted to know if I liked the job. Then she asked whether I'd had any problems with colleagues or anything. I answered her, and we had a good conversation. Then she started checking her computer, and she said, "OK, could you close the door?" I got up, closed the door, on the inside, and stood there. My manager kept looking at something on her computer, and there was dead silence. Finally, she looked up and said, "Oh, are you still here?" I was so embarrassed.
That is embarrassing. At least next time you'll know what to do, if there is a next time. And speaking of next time, when is next weekend? Sometimes it's not so clear, like in Josh's story.
Not long ago, my friend Endra called me on a Wednesday night and asked me if I was doing anything the following Saturday. He said, "Are you doing anything next Saturday?" And I said no. He said he was giving a surprise party for his wife Moni and asked me if I could come. I said yes. Endra told me that I'd be in trouble if I told her. I promised that I'd keep it a secret. Anyway, it was at their house, and the plan was for me to go there at 7 p.m. on Saturday and set things up. Then the other guests would arrive at 8 p.m, and Endra and Moni would come back from a restaurant at 9. So, 3 days later, on Saturday at 7 p.m, I drove over to their house and knocked on the door. Moni answered the door and said, Josh, what are you doing here? I just said, what happened to the party? Endra walked up behind her and looked at me with an angry expression and said, I told you it's next Saturday. I basically ruined the whole thing.
Very awkward. I would have been pretty angry with you too. Meanwhile, we have time for one more. And this one's a reminder to all of you learning a foreign language to pay close attention to your grammar. Here's Ella.
So I was having a coffee with a Scottish woman who I met at the college, and at the time my English wasn't as good as it is now. We were sitting chatting, getting to know each other, and at one point the conversation went a bit quiet. So I said, I'm sorry, I've been talking too much. Are you boring? Shall we leave? A very simple mistake, I know. But as I said, at the time, my English wasn't great, and I didn't even realize my mistake. She said, okay, asked the waiter for the bill, and when we said goodbye, I noticed she looked a bit uncomfortable. After that, we didn't meet again. I didn't realize what I had said until much later, during an English lesson about adjective endings. I still feel really bad when I remember that.
Well, maybe she was boring. We'll never find out. We'd love to hear more of your experiences, though. So write in the comments or send me an audio message with your story of how a misunderstanding affected one of your relationships. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back with more next time.
Hi, nice party.
Yes, very nice.
I'm Paul.
I'm Denise. Nice to meet you.
And you? How do you know Celia?
We went to college together.
Oh, yes. Were you on the same course as her?
Yes, we both did food technology.
How did you get into that?
My mother was a chef, so I suppose I just thought it was a good idea.
You know, I've always wondered, what exactly is food technology?
Well, obviously you learn a lot about cooking, but it covers all sorts of other things.
Such as?
Well, how food is produced, researching new flavours.
That sounds interesting. What do you mean by researching new flavours?
Well, different ice cream flavours or crisp flavours.
Crisp flavours? That's unusual. So, for instance...
Well, I once developed a banana-flavoured crisp.
Sounds terrible. What was it like?
My tutor said it was the most disgusting thing she'd ever tasted.
I'm not surprised. It sounds awful.
It was. What about you? How do you know Celia?
I used to work with her at the cafe. I was a waiter there, but I left.
Really? Why's that?
I liked the people I was working with, but I didn't like some of the customers.
How come?
Well, some of them were quite rude to the waiters. They got very impatient if we didn't serve them immediately. They were always complaining.
How did that make you feel?
Pretty angry, actually. But you can't lose your temper with customers.
Yeah, I can imagine. But you like food?
Yeah, I love food. This food's extremely good.
Yes, isn't it? This salad's particularly nice. How about you? Are you at all interested in cooking?
I love cooking, but I'm a terrible cook. I'm more of a restaurant person.
Oh, so am I. But I'm fairly new to this area. Can you recommend any good restaurants near here?
What sort of food do you like?
Indian, Mexican, and I quite like Thai. That's, one of my favourites.
Imperfect Inventions. They say that necessity is the mother of invention. If there's a need, then the solution will be found. But there seem to be some needs for which the perfect solution hasn't been developed yet. Here are some of your ideas. Earplugs that work. More and more people live in noisy environments, and many said they had been waiting for years for the perfect earplug. I'm often woken up by the neighbours, and nothing I've tried has worked. No jam printer. Many of you asked if it was possible to invent a printer that never jammed. It's particularly annoying when I'm in a hurry and I get a pop-up saying the printer's jammed. Scratch-proof sunglasses. What can make you angrier than when you drop your expensive sunglasses and they get damaged? When I spend a lot of money on sunglasses, I expect no scratches. 0. Self-labelling computer filing system. It shouldn't be too hard. The program could scan the documents in a folder and choose a label that fits.